Cain and Abel, Part 1, Life After the Garden. Good evening, dear listener. As you lie back and rest, let your breath fall into a slow rhythm. Let your thoughts soften like ripples fading across still water. Tonight we drift back to the very beginning, to a world fresh with dew, a sky untouched by time, a place just beyond Eden. This is the story of Cain and Abel. It begins after the garden, after Adam and Eve have stepped into a new life, away from paradise, but still under the care of God. They carry memories of perfect trees, of walking with the Creator, and also of a choice. Now they walk through dust. They learn what it means to plant, to harvest, to wait. They feel the weight of a world changed, and in this new world 2 sons are born. Cain, the firstborn, a worker of the soil, strong hands, quiet eyes. Abel, the younger, a keeper of sheep, gentle, watchful. They grow up in a land that's raw and wild. They learn from their parents. They laugh, they build, they wonder, and they worship, each in their own way. Cain tills the ground, draws life from the earth. Abel tends his flocks, guides them gently through pastures, and both bring offerings to God. Both reach out, from dust to heaven. Let that image settle in your mind. 2 brothers, each shaped by the same parents, but walking different paths, each bringing what they've grown, each hoping to be seen, each wanting to be loved. This is where their story begins. Part 2, 2 offerings, 1 response. The morning is calm. Birdsong drifts through the trees. The earth is still waking. Cain stands with his harvest, grain, fruit, vegetables pulled fresh from the ground, arranged with care. Abel leads a young lamb, quiet, soft-eyed. It follows him closely, trusting. Each brother brings their gift, not out of duty, but because they want to. They offer them to God. Cain lays his produce on the altar. Strong hands, firm eyes. His gift is from his labor, the sweat of his work. Abel kneels, his hand resting gently on the lamb, a firstborn of the flock. He offers it, the best he has. The wind slows, the air feels full, and then a difference. God looks with favor on Abel's offering. The smoke rises straight, as if the sky receives it gladly. But Cain's offering doesn't receive the same welcome. There is no fire, no wind, just silence. Cain notices, and something shifts. Not loud, not sudden, just a quiet twist of the heart. His chest tightens, his jaw sets. He looks at the ground, but his thoughts burn upward. Why Abel? Why not me? God sees his face, his frustration, and speaks softly. Why are you angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But if not, sin is crouching at your door. You must master it. A gentle warning, a chance. But Cain doesn't answer. He just stares ahead. Let that sit with you. Sometimes the quiet moments, the ones we don't speak about, are the ones that shape us most. Part 3. In the field. Days pass. The sky is clear. The land stretches wide. But something inside Cain is restless, heavy, still burning. He watches Abel from a distance, his brother, so peaceful, so unaware. The calm in Abel's eyes feels like an echo Cain can't reach. And that quiet jealousy, the kind that starts small, grows. One day Cain says to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." Simple words, nothing strange. Abel nods, follows. The field is wide and open. Golden grass sways in the wind. There are no walls, no watchers, just two brothers. And then suddenly everything breaks. Cain turns on Abel, the quiet turns to violence, and the field is no longer peaceful. The first breath of life taken from one by another. Abel is still. Cain steps back, his hands shaking. The air is silent again, but it's not peace. It's sorrow, a sorrow that reaches the ground. Let that sink into your chest. This wasn't rage. It was slow. It was quiet. It was something fed by silence, by comparison, by a heart left unchecked. And now the world feels colder. The earth has witnessed its first loss. Part 4. Where is your brother? The field is quiet. Too quiet. Cain doesn't move. His breath is shallow. The sky above him feels distant. Then a voice, not from beside him, from within the silence. God speaks. "Cain, where is your brother?" Abel. It's not a question for information. It's a question for the heart. Cain answers, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But the ground knows. The earth itself has cried out. The silence is not empty. God replies, "Your brother's blood is calling to me from the ground." The first life taken has not gone unnoticed. Cain's actions have a weight that echoes beyond the moment. And now there are consequences. Not because God is cruel, but because he is just. Cain will no longer work the soil. The ground will no longer give back. He will wander, rootless. But even in this, even after what he's done, God marks Cain, not with punishment, with protection, so no one may harm him. So the cycle of bloodshed ends, a sign of mercy, carved into a story of failure. Let that rest in your thoughts. Even when we fall, even when we fail, God does not abandon. He speaks. He asks. He still offers grace. Part 5. The Mark and the Mercy. Cain lowers his head. He feels the weight of what he's done. The ground that once gave him food now feels cold beneath his feet. He says quietly, "My punishment is more than I can bear." He's afraid of being alone, afraid of being hunted, afraid of being forgotten. But God even now does not cast him into darkness. He gives him a mark, not a curse, not a scar, a sign that he is still protected. Whoever harms Cain will suffer sevenfold. The world will know Cain belongs to God, even in his guilt. And so Cain leaves, away from his family, away from the place he knew. He travels east, to a land called Nod, which means wandering. There he begins again. He builds a city. He raises a family. He lives, not as a villain, but as a man marked by what he's done and by the mercy he didn't expect. This is not a story of happy endings. It's not a tale of justice wrapped in a bow. It's a story of what it means to be human, of jealousy, of pain, of a God who still reaches, even after the damage is done. Let that truth rest with you. Even in exile, we are not erased. Part 6. Life in the Land of Wandering. Cain settles in Nod, a land of wandering, but not without purpose. He begins to build, not just a city of stone, but a life, a rhythm. He names the city after his son, Enoch, a quiet gesture of memory, of hope, of starting again. He plants new fields, raises new generations. He teaches, he watches, he carries both weight and wisdom, the mark on him still there, a reminder, not just of what he did, but of what he was spared, of a God who sees even in exile. The story doesn't tell us much more about Cain, not his joys, not his regrets, only that he lived, that he continued, that from his line came cities, craftsmen, music, tools. Even out of brokenness something grows, because people are more than their worst moment. And God's mercy, it stretches even into the places we don't talk about. Let that settle in you. Sometimes grace isn't loud. Sometimes it's just being allowed to go on, to live another day, to raise something new from the soil of what's been lost. Part 7. Echoes of the Beginning. Time keeps moving. Cain grows older. The city grows larger. What began as one man's exile becomes the foundation of generations, sons and daughters, farms and homes. Music in the evening, iron in the hands of craftsmen, but always in the quiet corners of Cain's heart, something remains. Memory of a field, of a voice, of a moment he cannot undo. Sometimes at dusk he walks alone, past the walls of the city into the wild, where the sky stretches wide and the ground feels untouched. There he listens, to the wind, to his breath, to a silence that feels both distant and near. Maybe he speaks, maybe he says the name, Abel, not out of guilt, but because forgetting would be worse. The past cannot be changed, but it can be remembered with honesty, with sorrow, with humility. Let that image stay with you. Even after choices are made, we are still held. Even in wandering, we are still heard. God doesn't erase stories. He walks with them. Part 8. The world moves forward. Generations pass. What Cain began in wandering becomes a world full of names, songs, work and wonder. His children's children learn how to make tools. Others make instruments, flutes, harps, drums. The sound of creation continues, even from a place that began in pain. But the world is not without struggle. Jealousy, pride, violence. They don't vanish. They live in hearts, like seeds in the soil. Yet even then, people keep building, keep planting, keep loving. Because the world isn't just broken, it's still full of light. Even after the first fall, even after the first wound, God's breath still moves in the wind. Some people begin to seek God again, to walk with Him, to call on His name. They don't ignore the past, they grow through it. And Cain's story, though quiet now, lives in the background, not as a warning, but as a thread, a reminder that no life is beyond reach, that grace runs deep, even through generations, even through silence. Let that settle inside you. We are all part of a story still being written, with pages of sorrow, yes, but also of redemption. Part 9. The Mark That Remained. Cain lives into old age. His hair grays, his walk slows, but the mark, it's still there. Invisible maybe, but known, felt. He carries it quietly, like a scar on the heart, not as a punishment, but as a memory wrapped in mercy. He watches his descendants laugh, build fires, tell stories. He sees joy again, and sorrow too. But he also sees that life does not end with him. It continues, and it holds both the wound and the healing. Sometimes, children ask about the mark. Why do we wander? Why do we build outside the garden? And maybe Cain tells them the truth. Maybe he says, I made a choice once, a terrible one, and yet God let me live. He let me keep going. Not everyone would understand, but some would. The mark becomes a symbol, not just of what was done, but of what was given. Another chance, another breath, another day. Let that thought rest with you now. The past shapes us, but grace carries us. You are not defined by your worst day. You are not finished just because you've failed. You're still here, and you're still loved. Part 10. A story that stays. Cain's days grow fewer. The sun sets slower now. The nights stretch longer, but his eyes still watch the stars, the same sky he saw in his youth, in the field, in Nod, in the garden's shadow. He's not who he once was, and he knows that his life has been many things, a beginning, a wound, a lesson, a legacy, but it has not been wasted, because even in failure he lived, he built, he raised, he remembered. And maybe that's what redemption looks like, not erasing what happened, but walking forward anyway, step by step, day by day, with the weight of the past and the light of mercy side by side. The story of Cain and Abel is not simple, it's human. Two brothers, two offerings, a choice, and a God who didn't walk away. And tonight as you rest, let that story wrap around you. You are not your worst moment. You are not your biggest mistake. You are still here, still growing, still breathing, and grace, it's still near. So close your eyes. Let go of the weight. Let sleep come gently. The story isn't over. Not for Cain, not for you,